forgiveness
3,
in the hills of love
5, 6, 7,
on the sea of love.
9.
Love's gonna get you, baby.
Welcome everyone. Okay, so title of my talk today is The Summer of Gratitude. And the inspiration for my talk was, there was this, many years ago, there was this idea that got put out in the culture about the Summer of Love that happened here in San Francisco. And, I had always heard about the Summer of Love. And of course, we saw the hippies on TV, and you see them in documentaries, and everyone mentions it. And it kind of goes into it. But, being a history teacher, I was compelled to look at it and study it a little bit, because I was born in 1964. So I wasn't really around when the Summer of Love happened in terms of being cognizant of it, right? But I did want to do a little research on it and just tell you a little bit about that, because it is the inspiration for the talk today, even though we're emphasizing gratitude. So the Summer of Love, in popular culture, is thought to have taken place in the summer of 1967. But actually, and according to my research, it was really kind of over by then, because the status quo, the establishment, kind of squashed it. So what it was actually a couple-year process from 1965 to 1967. In the Bay Area, there was this group of enlightened folks who kind of became called hippies, who were starting to just experiment with different ideas and different forms of music and art and different way of looking at human relationships, political institutions, and all of that. So it was intellectuals, it was artists, it was people who just said, we have to do things differently. And actually, one of the inspirations was that people started to experiment with psychedelic drugs. And actually, in Berkeley, University of Berkeley, there was a guy that actually manufactured the psychedelic drug on his own, and people were starting to take it and have these spiritual experiences, mystical experiences that they called them, and they were transcending and breaking through the norms. And so what came out of this, again, this was part of the inspiration for folks to look at, just be willing to challenge the kind of the status quo, the kind of material values that they had been raised on. And they were looking at different ways of doing things, and accessing these kind of psychedelics was happening. Now, what's interesting about this is we've been discussing in my class on Thursday night, is that now there are studies and there are organizations that actually use these kinds of psychedelics. They're non-addictive, to help people transcend and heal traumas and all kinds of other things. And the science says that it actually helps, but it also says that you have to do your own spiritual work as well. So anyway, that's kind of like, I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to San Francisco and the Summer of Love. But today, what I really want to also do is just transition into this idea of the Summer of Gratitude. So what I want to say is this, that as a minister or a reverend at the Community Miracle Center, as a Course in Miracles student, I hereby do proclaim 2020 to be the Summer of Gratitude. Woo! All right, let's do it. The Summer of Gratitude. Now, what right do I have to call this the Summer of Gratitude? I mean, if you look at today's readings, gratitude is a lesson hard to learn for those who look upon the world amiss. And okay, now if you take that statement literally, right now we're up against, some serious times. We look at, I had to check some of the latest stats. According to CNN, we have had 140,000 of our brothers and sisters who have made their transition due to COVID. We've had an increase in the unemployment rate significantly because of this pandemic. We've had some really ugly incidents around race that have brought light to how some of the police treat African Americans and other minorities. And of course, for most of us, it's probably been an experience of restrictions of our personal freedom, our social freedom. So if you look at the world literally from that point of view, there is a lot to kind of be challenged about, right? So, but A Course in Miracles challenges us to challenge that thought, right? To challenge our perceptions that don't make us happy. So, what makes us happy? Well, I'm going to start with me. First of all, on Wednesday was my last day of summer school. So I'm now off for 3.5 weeks. I have no work for 3.5 weeks. And that I am very grateful for. I can remember when I was in college, I see it, thank you, Reverend Steve. When I was in college, I was talking to one of my professors. I had a great professor. I'll talk about grateful. I had this guy named Dr. Gabor Aborit, who was from Hungary, and he actually escaped the Russian invasion of his country when they were fighting for their independence. There was a revolution in Eastern Europe at that time. And he actually escaped with his sister through the woods to the West and eventually made it to the United States. Anyway, he was my college professor and I loved him. He's a great history professor. We had different philosophical points of view. He was very conservative, but he was a great, great guy. And I told him one time I was thinking about teaching, and he laughed and he said to me, the best thing about teaching is June, July, and August. And if you've ever been a teacher, you kind of get that, because it's a labor of love, but it's very intense at times. So that was great. I'm also grateful for, as I get older and older, I just love my attachment to the Philadelphia Eagles, my sports teams. And, they just bring me great joy. Yeah, Rudy, I see that. Tough. Okay, my team's a winning team. That's all I got to say. So you can see my flag, my little blanket over here that has the Eagles on it. My brother and his lovely wife, Gina, got me the coffee mug, the Eagles. Yay! I'm getting psyched for this season coming up. And Chuck, I don't know if you have this, but I've got my face mask, which I've shown, but everyone hasn't seen it. I got my face mask from the Eagles. So I'm honestly, it's like, when I think about the season and the sports teams, I just have a great connection, and it gets me excited and hopeful, and it gives me a connection to my friends and family. Sometimes, that I haven't seen in a while, but I still have that connection. So it just fills me with a lot of joy and happiness. And even with the 49er fans, I still have, it's in the area. I cheer for the 49ers after the Eagles. Okay. That's as far as I can get. Okay. But it gives me that kind of connection to a really happy time. And as my brother will tell you, if we talk about it, when we first were young fans of the Philadelphia Eagles, they were really terrible. And we endured a lot of losing seasons. And it wasn't really that we got consistently good till Andy Reid came in the 2000s. And of course, in 2018, we won a Super Bowl, which is much more recent than the 49ers we'll have at too. So anyway, it gives me a lot of joy. And there's a lot of things that give me a lot of joy as well. The Course in Miracles says this: it is insane to offer thanks because of suffering, but it is equally insane to fail in gratitude to one who offers us the certain means whereby all pain is healed and suffering replaced with laughter and happiness. And that's kind of what I was really trying to get at in my meditation. It is absolutely true. It's absolutely true to not say that when we're going through an experience like we're going through, that we're not going to have issues. So, I mean, if anybody here is saying honestly that the pandemic hasn't caused them some stress, I might question that. For me, there has been stress related to not being able to see friends, for not playing, not playing softball, not being able to be at church at 25 Van Ness, and seeing it, just seeing people has been really, really challenging. But what we know about our own experience is, well, why stay in that state of mind, right? What is the benefit for that? In chapter 6 in the Course in Miracles, it wasn't in the reading today, but it says this: all good teachers realize that only fundamental change will last, but they do not begin at that level. Strengthening motivation for change is their first and foremost goal. It is also their last and final one. Increasing motivation for change in the learner is all that the teacher need to do to guarantee change. So why be grateful? Well, Jesus tells us in the Course in Miracles is because it'll make you feel better. Okay, so yes, it is very, very possible for us to choose a perception of pain and misery. But who wants to be there, right? Who wants to stay there? Now, we all know that we do, from time to time, we do stay in those periods, all right? And on some level, we're making a choice. But what Jesus is basically saying in this statement about love and gratitude is that there is another choice you can make. There's another way of seeing it, right? So take a look at those things that we are experiencing, the pandemic, the unemployment, the isolation, and try to get a different spin on it. If it's causing us to be upset, if it's causing us to have misery, right? And what can you do? Well, what is it that you're grateful for? Okay, what is it that you can be grateful for that can really help you in terms of doing it? So, I was having this experience, and I think I may have shared it in my last talk. I always work summer session, which is optional for teachers. Always, but you get some benefit from making some extra money, and they actually pay teachers pretty well to work in the summer. It's kind of funny. Because it's hard to get teachers to give up their summers. That's part of it, right? But this summer, usually summer is a breeze. I mean, for me, it's a breeze. I go in at 8, I leave at 1, and I'm done. Well, this summer, we're teaching on distance learning. And that means that you're on Zoom or Google Classroom, and it's very, very different. And it was actually much harder. And I was working 8 to 10 hour days doing this. And also they messed up. Well, they changed the way they paid us. So they paid us less, and they didn't communicate to us that this was happening. So I was in charge of kind of my school summer learning, and I assigned everybody more hours to work, and here we're getting paid less. So it was a little difficult, kind of stressful situation. And I could have got at times, like I was finding myself doing falling back into that, what the Course says is to watch out for: the grievances, the resentments. I'm resentful because I'm working harder, I'm getting paid less. I have a grievance because the school district didn't communicate this with me. I have a grievance because in the past, my summers were so cool. All I did was teach and leave, and I went to work out and spend time, and, I had more time to myself. And this year I was working more. So I really had to figure out, okay, what's going on? Well, there were a couple real great benefits and things that I was grateful for. First of all, I had worked to get a teacher that I had at my previous school, Lisa, to come and join our staff. And it actually worked out. And I had to work really hard and do a lot of behind the scenes work to get this to happen. But Lisa came aboard, and we taught this class, and we taught this amazing class. It was called, because we can have a lot of flexibility, it was called Ethnicity, Race, and Bias in America. And since we had a lot of flexibility, it was exactly right what was going on in terms of, with the historical stuff that was going on. So I got to work with a great subject throughout the summer, did a lot of work but because I worked with this fellow, this mighty companion, we worked hard, but we learned a lot. And just myself learned a lot about the topic, and I got a lot of good ideas because Lisa's a great teacher. So I learned a lot more about how to do distance learning, but also to become a better teacher. So what usually was a kind of difficult experience turned out to be a really kind of cool experience for me. What else am I grateful for? I have to say that I'm grateful that I live in a beautiful city. San Francisco, one of the things we can do during this quarantine or shelter in place that we're experiencing is that we can go out into nature. We pretty much have access to beaches and to Golden Gate Park and to, all these natural vistas. And actually, I think I'm probably, after this talk or early in midweek, I'm going to head out to Utah to see some of those amazing national parks, Bryce Canyon and Zion National Park, all that kind of stuff, because why not, right? I was planning on going to Europe this summer, but I can't do that. So why not go out into the open areas where the parks are still open and folks will let us do it, and we can still do it and see a lot of natural beauty. So there it is. I can have gratitude for the fact that all the natural beauty that I may not necessarily do unless I didn't have that option, that now I actually get to the beach more. I get to the park more. And I do connect to that. Like, that does give me a connection kind of to my higher self, my higher power. I feel restored when I go to those places. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the opportunity to do it. Now, so I think part of it is just this, is that we do have to kind of develop a practice of gratitude. How can we have a summer of gratitude? We have to kind of work at it a little bit, just like we have to work on our forgiveness. We have to work on what we're grateful for, no matter what the circumstances that we experience. We all have experiences with work. We all have experiences with health. We all have experiences with loved ones, with relationships, with parents, and so on and so forth, friends. So we all have those experiences. And what we really have to do is cultivate, we heard in the popular culture, cultivate an attitude of gratitude. Well, notice it's an cultivate, like we do have to work on it. For me, grievances and resentments come very easily. It's easy for me to, I'm interested in political science. I'm interested in history. It's easy for me to be resentful about some of the things that are happening on the national level. I disagree with some decisions. I disagree with priorities and so on and so forth. But, the truth is that I need to find, I need to really work on being grateful. And because, that's just not what the Course in Miracles tells us, but it's what will keep me happy. All right. It's what will keep me happy. And this is what the primary, like we said earlier in the other reading, the primary objective of A Course in Miracles is to be at peace. And that's our true reality. If you remember from A Course in Miracles, at the very beginning of the text, it says this: nothing real can be threatened. And that's another thing we can learn from the Course in Miracles. The reality of our experience is that we're eternal beings, right? That we go on forever. But we're all one. Deep down, we're all one. And at some point, we're this journey of having life in bodies is going to transcend itself, and we're going to be one with our Creator. And we're told it's really hard to know exactly what that experience is like, but being grateful and being in love and having that experience is really there. So this morning's reading says that what we really have to be careful about is that we can think that gratitude can be in the place of anger, malice, and revenge. And in fact, that hatred is really like an experience of death for us. And one thing it's important to keep in mind is that we don't always see it from that perspective. You know, we don't always think that when we're angry that we're not grateful, that when we are, you know, responding to someone, we don't necessarily think that that's revenge. But if we're reacting to them from anger, it is kind of a form of revenge. When we hope for someone else to have something bad happen to them, then that is kind of that experience, right? Is that we are condemning them. And we know from A Course in Miracles that really what we're doing is we're actually condemning ourselves. So what I'd like to say is that in order for us to really fulfill my proclamation today, which is to make this a summer of gratitude, we can listen to what the Course in Miracles has to say of itself. For love can walk no road except the way of gratitude, and thus we go who walk the way to God. So I wish for everyone to have a summer of gratitude and love and peace. And with that, I end my talk. Thank you.
How beautiful you are. How beautiful you are. And all my forbidden fruits got to keep on feeding like a dog in a cage. And now you lie here like honey in the palm of my hand. I yearn for taste. You're so right.